All right, excellent afternoon to all those who are watching me across the states in Nigeria. National and economic concerns are of paramount importance on the scale of necessity for Nigerians. And is it a priority to allocate funds for religious obligations above welfare and education? Will I say that's the obligations in our country today? All of that will be answered in a few minutes. Again, I welcome you to another interesting episode of Real Talk with Kike. I remain your convener, Kike Atanda-Owo. And of course, I think it's important for us to hear what On This Day in History segment has for us. Let's listen and I'll return to give my take on it. Stay with me, I'll be right back. All right, many thanks for staying with me. Thus far on this day in history segment today, I just feel that it's such a terrible thing to learn from history, or will I say what a terrible thing or to learn from history, especially when it comes to Spanish and the English people, where there was a complicit in the delivery of 400 enslaved Africans from West Africa. And the slavery still continues till today, but in different dimensions, And I just feel that knowledge is one of the weapons for breaking free from bondage. That's my takeaway from On This Day in History segment. I think it's important for us to quickly hear a message from our sponsors. And when I return, we'll dive straight to the main conversation at hand. Stay with me. I'll be right back. All right, the federal government of Nigeria faces backlash for subsidizing the 2024 Hajj with 90 billion naira while allocating only 50 billion naira for the student loan scheme. Critics, including education and legal experts, argue this as a misplacement of priorities amidst the Nigerian economic struggles. And of course, Vice President Kashim Shettima, representing President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, defended the subsidy, citing economic conditions. Critics highlight the constitutional issues and call for prioritizing social welfare and education over religious subsidy. Today, my guest is Segun Awosoya. Segalink is a popular figure and a familiar face on Real Talk with Kike. He is a civil rights leader, social justice, and of course, institutional reforms advocate. He is also deeply involved in social engineering and nation building. On the live show today, my Real Talk will focus on the federal government of Nigeria's decision to allocate 90 billion naira to subsidize the 2024 Hajj, and of course, contrasting it with the minimum wage demands of the workers and of course the civil servants when it comes to the 50 billion allocated for the student loan scheme and other economic demands for our country. But before I delve into Real Talk with my guest, I think it's important for me to play my guest profile, and when I return, I will be speaking with him. Stay with All right, welcome to the show, Mr. Segalink. It's a pleasure to have you on Real Talk with Kike again today. How are you doing today, sir? Many thanks for creating time to do this with me.
Very much for having me, and it's good to see you again.
Many thanks for doing this with me. Let's just dive straight to the topic at hand, because I know that we are pressed for time before they start running commentary in my ears. But quickly, the budget titled Budget of Renewed Hope is something that I would like to open the show with, because a proposed expenditure of 27.5 million naira and an estimated revenue of 18.3 trillion naira for the 2024 fiscal year was presented, and it's enough to say that 90 billion naira, which is approximately 33% of the 27.5 trillion naira, should cause controversy. What's your take thus far from this news?
I first want us to understand the implication of religion in every state. You know that religion and politics are siamese twins. You cannot separate them. And on the contrary, we know in Nigeria that Nigeria is a secular state. And when we say that, a lot of professors get angry. They throw a conniption fit that, oh, you can't say Nigeria is a secular state because we have lots of different kinds of religion in Nigeria. And that's exactly what a secular state means. It simply says that we don't have a designated religion in the country. Therefore, Nigeria is not a state recognized by one religion or two religions, because there are diverse religions. So government, according to the Chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution, the fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policy, it says that the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government, and they need not strive to be the harbinger of happiness of a handful at the expense of the majority. So when you have a country where you have inflation rates shooting for the stars at 29.9%, and unemployment rate is also on the rise, and you have 10.5 million of the country's children out of school, and a government and an administration that campaign for improved security, improvement of the economy and human capital development, 90 billion as an intervention fund to the National Hajj Commission, who are in their need of 230 billion for the religious exploration or the spiritual expedition of a few, should not be a priority to a government who is dealing to fix the economy of Nigeria. We know a lot of people who are making sacrifices today, giving the high rise of living, the high cost of living in the country, who needs intervention. And we cannot say that government should continue to fend for the purchase or pursuit of happiness of a handful. And come to think of it, because Nigeria is a secular state, whatever happens to the Shango, Shopono, Amadioa, Ogun, Oya worshippers, who may want to explore, their own deity as well. For example, the Oshun people, nothing stops the Oshun worshippers from seeking the lost city of Atlantis, from asking for government to subsidize or fund the development or the construction of diving capsules that will let them explore the bottom of the ocean, just so they can see and trace the ancestry of their religion. Whatever happens to the supply of dogs to the Ogun worshippers, so that they can have more to sacrifice during the Ogun worship period. So whatever happens to all these other religions, if government have positioned itself to be the funder of the happiness of people who are taking religious expedition. So these are some of the things that we must look at. And I have heard a lot of argument about this, where professors are saying, oh, during the festive period, they have known governments to be in the habit of creating free rides. Free rides are not, I've never recalled a situation where people's religion were checked at the door when people are taking free rides during Christmas period. It's a festivity for everybody, whether you are Christians or Muslims. When they are sharing rides from the legislature, the House of Reps and all, for people during festive period, whether it's a Muslim one or not, they share for everybody in the spirit of the holiday. But when people decide on their own to intrinsically pursue a a religious expedition or a spiritual journey. It is not the business of government to subsidize that at the expense of other issues within the economy that is calling for the need for that money, no matter how meager it might look to those who approved it, because the argument is they needed 230 billion and government only gave them 90 billion. And I really don't understand why they are trying to defend this, because it is not the approval alone that is causing Nigerians to be restive, or for them to be firing back, or for them to be angry, or for them to have discontent. It is the attempt at justifying this. It is not justified from my own position. I don't know how government is going to justify this expenditure, because if student loan itself, as compared, is only having a paltry 50 billion, for allocation for those who can afford to be in school, who want to take loans, why should personal religious exploration of individuals be costing the country that much? So this needs to be reviewed for a government that needs to prove to Nigerians that they are also taking measures to be fiscally disciplined.
All right,
because you cannot allow temporary issues or pressures to push you to make expenditures that will make Nigerians feel their own personal sacrifice is not worth it.
All right, fantastic insights right there. I wish I could touch on the other religions that you mentioned aside Christianity and Islam. But that aside, because I want us to, throw more light on why, as the federal government allocated 90 billion for the Hajj subsidy while allocating 50 billion for the students' loan scheme. What does this say about the government's priorities, if you listen to my opening message earlier? Second is the fact that given the current economic situation in Nigeria, what are the potential economic repercussions of this subsidizing the Hajj with such a significant amount of money?
If you're looking at it from, a holistic point of view, to government, this is just an intervention for religious organizations or for a religious group, a major religious group in the country, that they believe that with their intervention, it will make their journey to be smoother because it's a recurring or it's a perennial thing. But the implication of this in a country where on day one, when the president took over the country, the removal of subsidy on oil fuel was the first thing that was done, which impacted every Nigerian, regardless of their religion, regardless of their occupation, regardless of their social stratification. And so with this, in consideration of this, knowing that Nigeria is still funding something that is not a priority, will begin to indict the seriousness or the financial or the fiscal discipline of this administration. And it is important and it is imperative that fiscal discipline must require a strong political commitment to prioritize responsible fiscal management over short-term political pressures. Our government at this point of our policy must be winning trust. They need to make tough decisions to maintain that fiscal discipline, even if it involves unpopular measures, such as jettisoning all these social expenditures that will tell on the commitment of the administration to discipline. And so this is what I've seen from there. And the implication of this is that people are making sacrifices, companies paying taxes without seeing the essence of the taxes that they're paying. People are making sacrifices without seeing government make the same. It will begin to dwindle or erode the trust they have in government to do all that they are promised to do for the people. So this is the implication on the economy, because the economy is every one of us. It is the contribution or the activity of the citizenry within the economy itself. And when you make unpopular or unconscionable policies or decisions that will raise eyebrow, it will begin to tell on how much the people believe in the things that you do, or the people align with the things that your authorities are doing. So it is important for this kind of behavior or this kind of unconstitutional and unjustifiable expenditures to be curbed by government. We are done doing wasting funds, wasting resources of our collective patrimony to assuage the desires of a handful. And it should not be done. Whether it's the trip to Jerusalem, whether it's the trip to Mecca, we must be able to cut our coat according to the pressures that we have already in the country.
All right, many thanks for that elaborate submission. And cutting our coast, I want to take us back to April 14th, the organized labor who demanded for 615 50,000 naira as the new minimum wage for workers to cope with the many economic realities and high cost of living in our country, Nigeria, while some parts of the labor union were demanding roughly 1 million naira, what does that say in terms of context of priorities for civil servant welfare? That's my first question to you. My second question, because of time, is the fact that this has raised religious and civil controversies in some discussion that have been, some people take it personal, that Hajj subsidy and Jerusalem subsidy has been for years. Why is it now that it has become a contention for debate all over the place? What's your take thus far with these two questions?
In 2015, 2014, 2020, it's not Nigeria in 2024. Our realities have changed. And one of the most constant things in life is change. And when things change in the plane of things, in the economy, in global politics, there needs to be an adjustment by governments themselves. The fact that we have been doing, or we have a ritual of throwing away money in order to assuage religious expeditions of Christians and Muslims in the country, while jettisoning other religions that we have that are even aged more than Christianity and Islam in Nigeria, goes to show that we don't understand the pulse on the street. Goes to show that we don't really understand the importance of assuaging the aspirations of an average Nigerian on the street. I really don't know how. I'm sure the people who are making these policies are far more intelligent than I am, because I would not say that in a country today where you have over 70% of your population being youth, who don't really have a direct understanding of how the nation works, things like this will be happening, and we'll be trying to maintain or reinforce the trajectory of years or historical wastages. I'll call it historical wastages, where we fund the aspirations of personal or intrinsic journeys of individuals as against looking at the critical issues of Nigeria. And I will, for the labor unions who are asking for higher minimum wage, I think, again, this has also shown that they themselves, they are not actually moving. They are not moving, they are not progressing. They don't understand the implication of asking for more money that will go straight into the rat race without anything to show for it. If high cost of living is an issue, you don't ask for minimum wage. You ask for living wage. You ask for things that will increase the SSS of the people. And what is the SSS? Not just the GDP now, not just the activities within the economy. You look at their salaries, you look at their savings, you look at their spendings. And so you look at the essential bills that will come. Electricity bills, which they are already increasing. You're looking at everything that are essential and critical for an average family to live on. And they are not talking about that. They are talking about minimum wage. Even as of today, I don't know how many people can afford to pay their drivers over 100,000 naira in Nigeria, even amongst those who are asking for a minimum wage of biblical figures. This is not the argument. The argument is for you to engage government enough to reduce the cost of living of Nigerians, to ensure that they engage Nigerians in such a way that whatever it is they get as salary, even if it is the same 50,000 or so, they will have enough to save, they will have enough to spend, they will have enough to claim that, yes, this is my income, and to be able to plan for their future. But that is not the discussion today. What they are asking for will still be eroded, because again, the more money you pay people, the more the cost of, the more they will chase. Somebody who is taking 100,000 naira for now, who has been given an increase to 200,000 naira, is going to go and marry a second wife. He's going to have a bigger house. We already know the character of our people. So it's not about increasing their income alone. It's about ensuring that whatever they are taking, is sustainable for them to manage all the expenditures and bills they have within their life. So the cost of living is what is there. How have you intervened in alternative to ease their logistics? How have you intervened in the ease of doing business in the country? How have you intervened in ensuring that everybody have electricity, power supply in their homes at an affordable cost? How have you been able to? So these are some of the things that needs to be done, and these are the things I expect labor leaders to be doing, rather than the pursuit of semantics, which will not improve the lives of the people. If you increase just salary or give them extra money, it's not going to change anything, because it doesn't change the cost of bread in the market. It doesn't change the cost of fuel in the market. It doesn't change it. So there are things already, behemoths and monsters economic monsters ready to swallow all these funds from the people. And so they won't even feel there's any change in their life because cost of living will also be higher. So that's the argument with that. But again, government must be sensitive to the needs of the people. They must be able to engage the people, meet them somewhere, and show their own hands with accountability, transparency, and openness to say, look, we actually meant what we said when we say we are sacrificing for now for a better Nigeria. And to do that, you must cut all these frivolous spendings and spendings that cannot be justified constitutionally and also based on the needs of Nigeria as of today. Right, if you give me that 90 billion naira to spend on the Nigerian police, I will appreciate it and I'll be able to tell you how much we'll be able to fix within the Nigerian police system, which will guarantee the safety of every single person in the society. But that money has gone to Hajj, which will not bring anything back other than the purported happiness of a handful, which I don't think.
Fantastic submission right there. Fantastic submission right there. And I agree with you because we don't want our men to keep marrying many wives and continue to journey through life. Let's go on a quick break to get a word from my sponsors. When I return, the conversation will continue. Stay with me. I'll be right back. This is Real Talk with Kike. All right, glad to know you're still right there with us. In case you just joined today's show, today's conversation is about the federal government's Hajj subsidy in terms of misplaced priorities and missed economic struggles. I've been examining the social, the economic and constitutional implication of the decision and exploring whether it reflects a misplacement of priorities with my guest, Mr. Atanda-Owo, popularly known as Segalink, and he has been throwing a lot of light on the key issues, including the impact on Nigerians' struggling economy, men not having excess and having too many wives, the public and sectorial reactions to all the issues at hand regarding the topic at hand, and of course the broader debate on the role of government in funding religious activities, versus essential public services like education and social welfare. And I must say many thanks to our guest, Mr. Atanda-Owo, for all your intelligent perspective thus far. But quickly, let me use this opportunity to open the phone lines for those who are listening to us. Remember that you can be part of the conversation by calling the studio number 0811-888-8113. It will show on your screen right now. And of course, we're streaming live on Facebook, and yes, on Facebook, both on Real Talk with Kike and of course on Silverbell platform. Segalink, many thanks again. When we went on a break, myself and the floor manager were debating on most of your point views, and I must say that I need to touch on the foreign exchange and the economic stability. And the reason why I want to touch on it is the fact that the VP mentioned the challenge of foreign exchange, increase that have affected Hajj costs. So my question is, how do these economic factors, influence government spending decision? What are the broader implications for economic stability from your own knowledge thus far? And second is the fact that, let me touch on the human rights and moral responsibility, which I feel that is one of your strengths. Is it morally and constitutionally appropriate for the government to use public funds for religious activities when many Nigerians are suffering from poverty and hunger?
Thank you very much, Kike, for that intelligent and poignant question. Let me just say something, that there's a difference between morality and legality. And also under those two headings, I don't see the justification for this expenditure. But on the political side, politics is not rational. On the political side, you can understand why government make these expenses. It is to buy the loyalty of the major religious organization in Nigeria. We are alive when in the last election, where you see opposition political parties or other political parties or some aspirants or candidates who spent enough time, building their campaign around religious, bigotry. And so with that, they are able to win and cover a lot of grounds with that. If they say, oh, this is a religious war, and when you call people to action based on religion, you have removed rationality from there and you are dealing with emotions and sentiments. So because government understand the power of emotions and sentiments amongst a religious environment, they will always want to come to the aid of, religious organizations or religious organizations when they are in their trouble. What exactly happened? You see, with the flux in which the dollar is and the exchange rate is, people who wanted to go on the Hajj have spent over 4 million per head, in working at the Hajj Commission, in working out their pilgrimage. But unfortunately, they are now indebted because of the exchange rate. There is a difference of about 1 point something million that each individual needs to cough out. And because of the sentimental attachment to this travel, as I've gathered, a few people can commit suicide if they don't make Hajj. To some, it is their dream to be in Mecca. To some, it is their dream to be in Jerusalem. Even if there's war going on there, they must touch the Holy Land so that they can come back and become Alhajis, they can come back and become JPs, which adds to their feathers in the society, which gives them authority about, which makes them better than their neighbor on their religious work. So because of the sentimental attachments to this, covered up with the religious sentiments involved, governments have been twisted into running an intervention based on that, because they will be partly to blame for what has happened because of the increase in the exchange rate. So to that, government felt, well, it's 230 billion that is needed. If we give them 90 billion, it will go a long way, and then individuals can find other means to raise more funds. And as I know, Kebbi State, Kano State, Kogi State have all contributed also to this intervention, by donating part of the money that they've gotten also from the federal allocation to ensure that there is an ease of travel for these pilgrims. So when you look at it from the perspective of discipline, or perspective of justice, perspective of accountability, transparency, you will see that it is always essential to ensure sound public finances, to promote economic stability and foster sustainable economic growth in any nation. That's the duty of government. And if you don't adhere to the principle of fiscal discipline, government will find it difficult to maintain control over their fiscal affairs and create an environment conducive to long-term prosperity. How can you tell me that a sum or an expenditure that was not budgeted, it is not part of the Nigerian budget to fund these people? Even if it is part of it, it cannot be up to the amount that we have to cough out, given other needs in our society. I wonder how fire service will feel right now. I wonder how Ministry of Interior will feel right now, knowing how much backlogs they have in the passport of Nigerians that are yet to be given because of lack of materials, because we are owing in trillions. We are owing our suppliers in trillions. So if they hear governments expending money to the 90th billion on religious pilgrimage, how do you want them to feel? How do you want them to justify to their company the interest paid on the loans that they are using to service that particular area of our economy? So these are some of the things that we look at and objectively say, this is a purely political decision. It has nothing to do with legality, constitutionality, or neither can it be justified, objectively by anybody who is logically thinking. But for somebody who is a praise singer, an Hosanna singer of a political party, somebody who doesn't want to admit that wrong has been done, especially to poor Nigerians, especially to children out of school, especially to those who have lost their jobs, especially to those who can't feed their families, especially to those who cannot even drive their own cars out of their own homes anymore because they can't afford fuel, especially to those who have been making huge sacrifice thinking Nigeria will be better and our government is doing all they can to bring us out of this doldrum, and then they hear 90 billion spent on ad. They will be disappointed. And I believe future expenditures in this realm should be curbed, because the Nigerian politicians and Nigerian leaders are shackled by public opinion. And when the public opinion is negative, it doesn't augur well for the government. And I pray that they listen to the people, and I pray that they listen to the person, they feel the pulse on the street, and they make the right adjustment in future spendings. Fiscal responsibility and discipline is key to show how responsible and how committed government is to their budget and to the people. Thank you.
Many thanks again for that elaborate submission right there. While we are praying that they are listening, or they will listen, let me touch on the political view, because with all that is going on right now around this issue at hand, how mighty will the political motives influence the government's decision to subsidize religious pilgrimage, you know? And in this, will I say, is this a form of political patronage to the northerners, if you ask me, who have the highest number of beneficiaries, and how, and I must ask you, how does it affect public trust in government? Because I believe with all that you've shared thus far, it's about sentiment when it comes to political motive, basically. Secondly is the fact that what alternative uses could there be for the 19 billion allocated to the Hajj subsidy? How could this money be utilized to address more pressing national issues such as unemployment? You've mentioned infrastructure earlier, you've mentioned hunger earlier, and of course, industry development. What's your take thus far with my questions? Unfortunately, I don't know if I'll be able to touch on, this might be my last question to you because of time.
Thank you. I must say that regardless of who we have in power, whether they are, regardless of their political party, regardless of the individuals, they will make the same expenditure. It may not be up to 90 billion, and it may even be more than 90 billion, because these are real pressures. When you talk about political pressures, religion is number one, and it's not about north and south. It's about Nigeria, because we have Muslims across Nigeria. We have Muslims in the southeast, we have in the south-south, we have in the southwest, we have in the middle belt, we have in the northeast, we have in the north central. So we have Muslims all over the country. So it's not about the northerners, as it were, even though we have more Muslims in the north. But this is not about a north and south thing. It's about religion. And when it comes to a matter of religion, governments always buckle. They always find means to ameliorate the agitations coming from the religious part of the country. And when you look at it economically, there are so many alternatives. We could have used this money to subsidize the expenditure on those or for electricity. You know, some of us in Zone D, Area D, or I don't know how this, Zone D, or Zone X or Zone Z, where we don't always have light. They only flash the power just to remind you that you're still connected to the grid. If this kind of money is injected into that sector, maybe we will be upgraded to Zone B or Zone C, where we'll at least be able to say we have 3 or 4 hours of power, even if we may not be able to afford to pay the bills for the vending. So there are so many alternatives that in which government could have spent this money that I was giving out to ameliorate the pains of people taking personal pilgrimage or personal spiritual journey into becoming Alhajis or into becoming a JP. So given the economic reality of the country, as it were, with the several issues that we're dealing with, I don't think it is expedient, for this kind of expenditure, to have been made in this tune. 90 billion is not a small amount of money, given the modern realities. And I believe that for that to have happened, you could have imagined the level of pressure that government must have been under for them to be able to do that, the needful. And in the eyes of a lot of people, professors who are defending this expenditure, they will tell you that government did the little that they can do. That government, if we're to complain, we should be complaining if government gives 230 billion, which was actually needed, but they only gave 90 billion, and that the problem is still there. And other states are rallying to ensure that they help remove the roadblock, from those who are taking this trip. So these are some of the issues. And in Nigeria, it is our custom to leave the issue and to fight ourselves. And before you know it, when issues of religious expenditure comes in, you start seeing people fighting against themselves. Now it now becomes an argument over Christians versus Muslims, over Muslims versus those who don't believe in the two religions, who have their own religions, who have been subjugated and relegated to the lower cadre. So I just want to say that it is not sustainable for government to continue to fund these kind of sentiments, because a time will come where there will be a nationwide protest by the Oshun, Oya, Shango, Shokono worshippers who have been relegated for many years, for centuries. They are citizens themselves as well, and they are free, freedom of association, freedom of expression, empowered by the Constitution to also demand that government fund their activities. If they are funding for Muslims and funding for Christians, there's no reason why some other religions should be relegated in the country. So by the time we start looking at it from that perspective and looking at the multiplicity and the multi-layered religious sectors we have in the country, government will have to think twice that if we are to give 90 billions across board, can we afford to do this to all religions in the country? The answer is no. So it is unsustainable, it's unjustifiable, it's unconstitutional, and it is morally wrong for government to do that at this point in our polity where everybody is trying to cut their coat according to their cloth. So thank you very much for that question. And I believe that as we continue to dialogue, government will find means to ameliorate this error and this blunder and ensure it doesn't happen again.
All right, many thanks, Mr. Segun Awosonya, for all your submission thus far. And I wish I had time to touch about the legal and constitutional concerns, but definitely I will be inviting you over again to Real Talk with Kike. But before I let you go, there's the last segment of the show that we call Trending. These are stories that binds us as Nigerians, as Africans. And the first trending story that caught my attention is that of UK Air Operations that spoke about the regulatory report about airpiece on safety violation. And this is where I have an opinion as a host. And first off, I must say that airpiece has firmly refuted recent allegations of a safety breach in the United Kingdom, stating, that the issues raised during a ramp inspection by the UK Civil Aviation Authority, that's the CAA, have been fully resolved. And according to Stanley Olisa, the lead for corporate communication at Airpeace, the allegations, he said, were unfounded and intended to create unnecessary fear amongst the flying public. And Olisa also addressed the concerns in a statement, noting that the UK CAA's inspection highlighted a few issues, such as the issues of the electronic flight bag, that's the EFB, and the location of the cockpit library on their Boeing 777 aircraft. And of course, he also confirmed that these concerns were immediately addressed. Specifically, Stanley Olisa also mentioned that all Airpeace Boeing 77 aircraft are certified to operate with EFBs and also have the necessary approvals from the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority. Additionally, contrary to claims, these aircraft are equipped with charging ports and iPad mounts in the cockpits. And of course, the UK CAA had also raised a minor issue regarding the storage, the storage location of manuals and books in the cockpits. And Stanley Olisa explained that while there are two designed, or would I say designated storage in terms of the location on the Boeing 777, the inspectors, in terms of preference for storing books behind the captain has been accommodated in all future operations, and ramp inspections are standard procedures conducted by the aviation authorities worldwide, and that the UK CAA followed due process by notifying the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority for their findings. And he expressed surprise at the exaggerated media reports which misrepresented issue that has been resolved over a month ago. Airpeace, I must emphasize, Airpeace maintains, to be committed to maintaining the highest safety standards, employing robust operation mechanism to ensure full compliance with all aviation regulations, and thereby guaranteeing the safety and security of its passengers.
On Airpeace, we need to continue to support Airpeace. There are broken grounds and broken barriers in a very strong and challenging territory. There's no how that the British authorities or British Airways and other competition on that soil will give them an easy ride. They will continue to check. They will continue to look for means and ways through which they can disrupt their services, and they themselves have to up their standards when operating in that particular area, because it is not as easy. If it is easy, everybody will be doing it. So they've broken barriers, and they need to mount up with wings as eagles, build their strength in that regard by ensuring that they to all the regulatory requirements, only render their services in that realm. And I believe they will do well. They are representing Nigeria, and we must support them. And to our press, we need to, the press need to be very responsible, especially things that has to do with the image of our country. Whether it's a firm representing Nigeria, whether it's our artists, whether it's our journalists, whether it's incidents about Nigeria, we must not focus or prioritize the trend or prioritize the social metrics or the over the significance of that particular incident. If not, we will begin to pull down our own, destroy our own nation in the eye of the public, when we focus on juicy stories without looking into the context of those stories. So the press needs to show responsibility in that regard. Airpeace has broken barriers in a very strong aspect that has helped ameliorate the impact of the cost of travel, on Nigerians through other airlines. So with that, they must be commended, they must be supported.
Right.
And when we hear news about things, we must verify them and report them as objectively as we can. On Sean Diddy Combs, it's unfortunate.
But quickly, let me move to the second trending story before I come to my guest for his own opinion. The second trending story, because of time, is the Sean Combs that publicly apologized to his ex, Casey Ventura's abuse. And let me hold my breath. I want to be sure that, I'm conscious of my choice of words, because I purposely selected this trending story to highlight what we can learn or take away from the story. Especially, of course, we all know who this celebrity is and the magnitude of his stardom in the world, which gives us an idea on the number of people and relationships he can influence or he has influenced. And having said that, I also want to acknowledge the fact that he had apologized on air. It's unclear why it took 8 years, for it to be released in terms of the footage that we all saw on socials. But we now know that Combs or Diddy is an abuser and a liar. Yes, because what CC Ventura said he did to her in that incident is no longer merely alleged, nor should it be categorized as ploy to tarnish our ex's image. He harmed Ventura at least once, and given what we know about the escalating nature of domestic violence and the fact that the video collaborates a specific incident that Ventura highlights in her suit, allegations are even more credible now with what we have all seen on social media thus far. So now Diddy has gone into full damage control mode, issuing a weak-willed apology. That's my word today. Weak-willed apology on Instagram, in which he highlights his own rehabilitation, and rather than the trauma inflicted, before he apologized even to the general public, rather than him apologizing to Ventura herself. So Combs said that he has been in therapy, gone to rehab and sought the assistance of a higher power to right his wrongs. I don't understand. He said, "I'm so sorry." He continued, but he also said he's committed to being a better man each and every day, that he's only compelled to apologize once repeated denials were proven false, which shows his pathetic desperation, if you ask me. And no one was swerved by, no one was swerved by his words. So, according to Meredith, an attorney for Casey, that said in a statement on Sunday that Combs, his video was more about himself than many people he has hurt. When Casey and multiple other women came forward, and he denied everything and suggested that the victims were looking for a payday, instead of him using that post to apologize to the women he has abused and to his children, maybe 4 of whom are also young girls, for behaving so badly. So I just feel that Diddy appeared to be more concerned with salvaging his career. Once again, is falling at the altar of success, if you ask me, when it comes to, seemingly, concerned about public image than his own private demons. So the reason why I settled for this story is that, to my Nigerian men and women, there's no room to harbor an abusive relationship or an abusive marriage. Your sanity and life is always above everything, especially when children are involved. Be clear on how you want to go forward using legal representation so as not to affect the children, especially where children are involved. We should always be clear about this. And again, for transparency purposes, I've constantly used myself as an example on many occasions on different episodes that such topic have come up on this platform. So abusive relationships or marriages are a no-no. I pray Casey, Ventura gets the right judgment, and healing. I think healing is also the word for me to emphasize on today. Healing from these episodes that she has found herself in. It may take long, but I believe strongly that healing will come, and I wish her the very best. Let me come to my guest quickly. I think I have 2 minutes for you. What's your submission thus far on these two trendings?
The abusive behavior, no matter how big you are as a star, no matter how popular you are, is not tolerated at all. We are all humans, and we must treat each other with dignity and with respect.
Many thanks. Many thanks. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. I wish you the very best. Thank you so much to my resourceful guest, Segalink, Mr. Atanda-Owo, for all your submission thus far. My name remains Kike Atanda-Owo. Remain kind to one another and catch me live on Inspiration FM 92.3 tomorrow, your Drive Time talk show at 5 p.m. Bye now.